Good evening, Patriots. Welcome to this wonderful premiere where if you are watching live, you're entering a chance to win the very much loved and sought after Trump round. As you are aware, and if you're not, those who subscribe or are already subscribed that like this video and drop a comment that corresponds to the content of the video, you'll be entered to win the 1 troy ounce Trump 45th president round. I encourage you to watch all the way through as I will cover some interesting information you may not have thought you needed to know. Let me remind all of you that all sources I utilize, however minimally or maximally, are always placed in the description box below the video which you are currently watching. These are here for you to do deeper digging and further research on your own. Educating yourself outside of the information here is encouraged. You, the people, are what matters, and it is in you to empower yourselves. We are the news now. So without further ado, I present to you the AI that fell from the sky. Many years ago, a very intelligent and educated man authored a plethora of books that would affect us for generations. One of his books I'm going to mention is called Prey. Here's a brief introduction to Prey, authored by Michael Crichton. This novel was written in 2002 and is narrated by the protagonist, Jack Foreman, an unemployed software programmer who was fired and blackballed for discovering an internal scandal. Prey is a warning to mankind about nanobots. Jack takes the role of a house husband while his wife Julia serves as a high-ranking executive at a nanorobotics company. Julia is working on new technology with her company, which takes up most of her time and makes her grow distant to Jack and the family. Julia shows Jack a video of her demonstrating the nanobots. In the video, the nanobots are being put into a human test subject, and video from inside the body is broadcast in real time. Strange events occur. Their son sees Silverman cleaning the house in the middle of the night. A strange device is found underneath the daughter's bed. Memory chips in game consoles turning to dust, and Julia becomes more abusive to the family. Jack is recruited to consult at her company because the project manager is having software issues with the nanobots. Jack is taken to the research facility where the building contractor supposedly failed to properly install filters in a certain vent in the building. And as a result, hazardous elements such as the assemblers for the nanobots, bacteria, and the nanobots themselves were blown into the desert, evolving and eventually forming autonomous swarms. These swarms appear to be clouds of solar-powered and self-sufficient nanobots reproducing and evolving rapidly. The swarms exhibit predatory behavior, attacking and killing animals in the wild. The swarms have the ability to quickly learn and to innovate. Julia helped teach the swarms to improve their intelligence and become more benign, but they regressed when she left. The swarms tend to wander around the planet during the day and quickly leave when strong winds blow or night falls. And the team decides to destroy the swarm or else risk its reproducing exponentially and becoming a plague that could endanger humanity. The team discovers that the swarms can replicate the physical features, perceptions, and motions of humans. Some nanobots that are less aggressive can invigorate their host's physical attributes and their emotional perceptions, and in the process affect their decision making, and the bots control those people without killing them. Jack destroys the nanobots by drinking vials containing a form of phage that kills the nanobot producing E. coli. He then proceeds to take a sample of the phage and pour it into the sprinkler system and drench everyone with it. After returning home, he doses his children with the phage to eradicate the potential nanobot infestation and provides the U.S. Army a sample. Jack puts together all the missing links that Julia's company had intentionally released the swarm into the desert so that it would evolve to stay in a cohesive group in the wind and be able to spread and infect the world. Critics of the day felt that nanotechnology was more science fiction than science, despite a lot of research and funding for it, and described the idea of the nanobots in the book Prey and Michael Crichton's, what they say is supposed science behind it, as being absurd. So who is Michael Crichton, and is he someone we can trust to understand the nature of this technology? While it seemed absurd in 2002, was he possibly spot on? Just so you know about who he was, I'm going to give you a quick bio about Michael Crichton. He was a writer and filmmaker best known as the author of Jurassic Park. He also created this TV series, ER. Crichton graduated summa cum laude from Harvard College and received his MD from Harvard Medical School. And he was a postdoctoral fellow at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, researching public policy. He taught courses in anthropology at Cambridge University and writing at MIT. Crichton's interest in computer modeling went back 40 years. His multi-discriminant analysis of Egyptian crania carried out on an IBM 7090 computer at Harvard was published in the Papers of the Peabody Museum in 1966. Crichton's first bestseller, The Andromeda Strain, was published while he was still a medical student. He later worked full-time on filming and writing. One of the most popular writers in the world, he has sold over 200 million books. His books have been translated into 38 languages and 13 have been made into films. He had a lifelong interest in computers, and his feature film Westworld was the first to employ computer-generated special effects back in 1973. Crichton's pioneering use of computer programs for film production earned him a Technical Achievement Academy Award in 1995. Crichton won an Emmy, a Peabody, and a Writers Guild of America Award for ER. In 2002, a newly discovered ankylosaur was named for him, Crichtonsaurus bollini. It seems to me his education, accomplishments, and intelligence consist of a person that would know very well what he is talking about, even in fictional novels. He is certainly more credible than people like Jussie Smollett or CNN by a long shot. He was far more educated, learned, and motivated than even you or I. I would say he's a credible source for AI and technology understanding. I wonder if the New York Times and The Guardian, who were critics of his back in the day, were not aware of the publication that came out only a year ahead of this book, entitled Microbivores, Artificial Mechanical Phagocytes Using Digest and Discharge Protocol. Just to give you the quick introduction, it says, nanomedicine offers the prospect of powerful new tools for the treatment of human diseases and the improvement of human biological systems. Previous papers had explored theoretical designs for artificial mechanical red cells and artificial mechanical platelets. This paper presents a scaling study for artificial mechanical phagocytes of microscopic size called microbivores. Microbivores constitute a large class of medical nanorobots intended to be deployed in human patients for a wide variety of antimicrobial therapeutic purposes, as, for example, a first-line response to septicemia. So we know that it was not only being suggested and looked into, it is starting to be used and made to do things for us inside our bodies. Now, let's move into what I think is a similar and relevant subject, Morgellons disease. If you have not heard of it, I will discuss what is said about this disease, theories of what the disease is, where it originated, and its effects on human beings. So first, notable symptoms include involuntary muscle twitches, chronic fatigue, low hormone levels, fibromyalgia, muscle spasms or generalized muscle pains, muscle and joint swelling, confusion, mental overload, mental fatigue and fog, mild to incapacitating, difficulty concentrating, inability to handle stress, paralysis sensation, nausea, itching from chronic to variable, from mild to intense, sensations of organisms scratching, biting, or crawling on or in the skin, continual nosebleeds, numbness in the limbs, eyes itch and develop floaters, skin lesions that may first appear like pimples or mosquito bites, acne that resists all form of conventional treatment, macroscopic extrusions, which are visible bodies discharging from the skin that may look like worm-like creatures, or fiber particles that appear like dirt to the unaided eye, but would contain clawed creatures visible under a microscope, crystalline extrusions or tiny little specks of glitter coming from the skin, changes in digestion and stool characteristics that may become greenish in color or develop a distinctively bad odor. So all of the above symptoms can vary in severity with changes of the phase of the moon, electromagnetic fields, diet, mood of the victim, and sufferers have also reported an increase in the intensity of symptoms that coincides with increase in chemtrail activity. And what you may or may not believe about chemtrails, regardless of its nature, is observable. Morgellons disease may be an affliction caused by an infestation of parasitic nanotechnology. Thoughts as to the origin include, but are not limited to, extraterrestrial species, biological warfare, nanotechnology experimentation gone wrong, and what I would say most notably would be the chemtrails. It has been theorized to be a mutated version of a genetically modified parasite intended and deliberately introduced to protect cotton from natural insect predation. Falling within the concept of unanticipated consequences, this theory does not require a belief in evil intentions, conspiracies, or alien intervention. This theory of origin indicates that due to the universal use of cotton clothing, that all mankind may be at risk. The parasitic creatures appear to be composed of synthetic fiber with bright colors including blue, purple, red, green, and gold. There was a private study, which again, see the sources in the description box, it is there, to determine the chemical and biological composition of these fibers, and it's been shown that the outer casing is made up of a high-density polyethylene fiber, HDPE. I have also found other toxicological pathology, identification of tissue biopsies from individuals diagnosed with Morgellons reveals the presence of continual silica or glass tubules with the presence of silicone. Now, let's consider there is a dark and evil conspiracy behind this technology. Harald Kautz-Vella is a chemist, activist, and author who lives in Germany. He has researched extensively on Morgellons syndrome. He has shared much of his scientific analysis of chemtrails and how they affect cellular life on Earth. His theory describes Morgellons as a fungi that are, quote, able to assimilate higher DNA, multiply it, and build up a DNA cluster that creates a morphogenic field. The fungus is using a multi-layered hexagonal structure to protect and cover the spore. These hexagons are part of a synthetic biology research called self-assembling large area photonic plasmonic crystals. Within the human body are hollow fibers that accumulate nanodyes within the fiber, and those hexagonal, self-assembling large area photonic plasmonic crystals. Both are self-assembling nanobots. They, being the intelligence community, spray them in components separated into bioform and nanodye, calling this mixture smart dust, and expect the smart dust to bioaccumulate and self-assemble itself into working units in the body, end quote. That's a lot to take in, and it's a lot of big words, but I think you're going to understand what he's saying is basically that these things are being sprayed in chemtrails, and they are assembling themselves in our body with their hive mind mentality. So he continues, quote, the fibers and crystals form a read-write unit. The fibers collect DNA light communication, that is, the bidirectional single photon emissions interchanged by any DNA cluster, and turn it into radio signals, end quote. He suggests these signals can be monitored by the intelligence community or even controlled with microwaves. Harald Kautz-Vella is describing AI science implementing a mechanical black magic technology, meaning melding the dark side occult that exists in the astral planes into a technology that utilizes, assimilates, and lives within our body. AI as a high-tech parasite in the ultimate solidification of black magic into matter. Harald goes on to say that by extracting light from our DNA, Morgellons lowers the scalar potential of the DNA. Is it possible AI is intended to rob us of our God-given ability to access higher consciousness in the realms that are now invisible to the five senses and possibly prevent our return home and enlightenment? This makes some sense to me because they are dumbing us down by slow killing us with fluoride in the water, poisoned food, causing us to be vulnerable to infections by way of unnecessary and dangerous vaccines. Adding to all this their unoriginal subversion tactics that have been brainwashing us for decades. Harald takes it another step further. Quote, they are flattening us down, lowering our vibration, extracting energy. They're sucking out what one could call the life force. This is far beyond any known concept of mind control, end quote. This is total control through implanted antenna that can emit where we are and what we are feeling and force feelings and thoughts that are not our own back through the implanted antenna. Think of Q during a Q&I, where an anon asks, how can Q know the future? And Q answers, control. When our Q team took back control, did they stop the signals to the people? A lot more people are waking up, and a lot of people are becoming physically angry and hysterical because of it. Who is receiving the signals now? If you follow SGT Report, Serial Brain 2, and or LT's channel, and we know, you will understand that alien technology is possibly not at all aliens from outer space. Perhaps the aliens are demonic intelligence from dimensions we cannot see or understand, and the elite reached into these dimensions and pulled something from it to force it onto us. It is my belief that the elite use their dark energy Freemason-controlled minds to force us into transhumanism with creatures that are in fact alien to our bodies, that can take over our movements, our thoughts, and our feelings. Ephesians 6:12 says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. People Morgellons is a legitimate disease that healthcare professionals should be trained to put in their differential diagnoses. Sadly, we are light years away from changing the medical indoctrination that has been occurring for decades, and it will be hard for any physician, nurse practitioner, or physician assistant who will take this seriously if it is a true concern for you. The absence of normal parasitic qualities has led many diagnosing physicians to assert that the problem is psychosomatic. The medical field as we know it has neither the experience nor training required to deal with a unique problem of this magnitude. As a healthcare provider myself, I am a PA. I was licensed in 2007. We were truly trained that if we cannot find a logical medical reason for people's symptoms and concerns, then to pawn them off on the next specialist, whether that be derm or psych, and who will also have been trained to laugh off AI infestation. One of probably many diagnoses the medical community is trained to give is DOP, delusions of parasitosis. The effective real-world translation of the diagnostic term is, I am not familiar with the source of this patient's alleged problem, so the patient must be crazy. Treatment recommendations can be found through diligent research on the internet, and if you do decide to embark on any treatment plans, know that it is curable. This can be turned around at any stage. For these reasons, people are attempting to self-diagnose due to the issues that they are coming across in the medical community. Educate yourself, research for yourself, and seek an environmental medical professional if needed. Harold Kautzvella has extensive knowledge of Morgellons, and I could and may make a video all its own based just on what he knows and shares. In the meantime, as I've said, there are resources in the description box below, and one thing he does warn about is that victimhood mentality could be caused by Morgellons. Don't be a victim, be self-aware, humble yourself, and look inward. Some methods people on the internet are suggesting that may be of use, though again I urge you to research thoroughly before deciding if you do or do not have Morgellons. Some of these included are not limited to what's called the spit test or the wine test, microscopic skin studies, and naked eye skin observations, and some blacklight observations. The possible downsides to the spit test or wine test are unknown chemical reactions causing what we see and or other mechanisms causing the results, such as gingivitis causing the same results. However, it is a cool and interesting test that you can do, and you can watch small particles come together with an odd sense of attraction to each other that connect into a long fiber. It reminds me of Terminator 2, where he gets frozen and then he explodes, and as he warms up, all his mercury parts melt and they start being drawn to each other, as we know mercury does, and so that's kind of what it looks like. But we have a lot of other organisms that we live symbiotically with that could be causing what we see there, so I'm not sure if it's a great test or not, but it is cool. And if you somehow have access to be able to observe your skin microscopically, you may have better luck diagnosing, but you can also take close-up photos and examine them. From one of my sources' words, quote, "The skin photos clearly show a metallic sheen has built up in the skin, along with faint red patches. This metallic sheen is preventing close observation of the extent of the translucent fiber infestation, which most are probably not fine hair as we know and understand them. Pinhead-sized skin eruptions, which develop quite quickly, then take weeks to heal, have been found and photographed, and these skin conditions have been observed and photographed on others as well." And, end quote. If you have a microscope, for microscopic aid in diagnosing, visualization of skin cells under microscopic view may show creatures of multiple leg design. In the center of most of them is a fibrous substance or structure which appears to control and or direct growth. This creature has no discernible biology as we know it and appears made of perhaps silicone. Theory suggests these are more likely neuron replacements, implants for our brains. An internet search of nanobots and neuron interface will show they've been considered if not constructed, end quote. And if you have a microscope and want to observe possible growth over time, quote, "New infections appear to be culturing in our noses. A strange white, thin, stringy booger is possibly the cause. A dozen or so slides of the substance were placed and set, and the growth was observed over time. Oddly enough, when small, they look like fly maggots, but can get quite long. Geometrical crystal growth, snowflakes designs, Morgellons fiber growth, mold-looking fibril growth with sporulations occurred over time," end quote. It is possible fibers under the skin can be seen with a black light, but this would not make for a positive diagnosis of Morgellons in my opinion. It might be fun and interesting though. Again, I recommend due diligence and research for yourself if you have further interest in the nature, diagnosis, and treatment of Morgellons. So, we now know nanobots are a real thing. It has been determined by some in the truth community that we are probably receiving them from chemtrails, and I believe this as well, breathing them in as they fall from the sky. There are scientific studies measuring plastic in our bodies through feces and finding we likely all have plastic running through our bloodstreams, our lymph, and our digestive tracts, and possibly our brains. Is it the intelligent hive mind collection of nanobots creating fibers that implant in our bodies, creating antennae that send and receive signals from controllers? Who is out there selling this technology right now? Let's see if we can determine if anyone is. All right, so like all digs that a lot of us do, I came across this company called Quantum Black, and I don't even remember how, and I don't really even remember completely why it was something I started to dig into aside from other research I was doing at the time, but I'm glad I did. And the video I'm going to show you is this video that they put on about who they are. And already you can see that there's this hexagonal shape that they use like a hive, and that is also their logo, is a hexagon. So I found that very interesting, and they say a lot of really interesting things that I had to watch over and over and over again to kind of pick out. And I'm going to play it and stop a few times. I'm not going to pick out everything that stood out to me, but I am going to mention a few things. And I'm glad I did find this because it's been quite interesting looking into them and their partner company, the McKinsey company, which I will probably do an entire another next video about, but I'll mention that again later. But let's just see what the video shows. So right off the bat, what I see here is a swarm of small particles that appear to be moving together with a probably hive-like mentality. Again, the swarm is moving collectively, and it is going around. What we can see is obviously a car, because this company also works with Formula One, which is a racing business. But it is collectively maybe collecting data, but it's moving together, hive mind, swarm of tiny particles.
So the reason we started Quantum Black was we believed that data was going to emerge as a fundamental competitive advantage. We started life in elite sport in Formula One, and we'd taken that idea and applied it firstly to race strategy, so the decisions that you make on a Sunday that help you win or lose the race, and then applied it into how do you develop a car over a season. What we got really excited about was taking something that we could develop in the elite environment of Formula One, we could prove its impact, and then actually scale it into many different areas in the world.
So what he's saying is Formula One, the car racing industry, was somewhere where they came up with this very intelligent, fast data, or whatever it is, because they never exactly say what they're talking about. And that's where it started, and they've decided they were going to be able to implement that into many other areas.
Something that's truly exciting. So our clients are organizations that are hunting elite performance, and we typically work with leadership to help them on that journey. Use the data that's inside their organization to actually understand what makes them tick and find patterns in that data that we can exploit to help them be the best that they can be.
So he wants to exploit patents. That's important to know because, as I talked about in my Q video, and when Hillary had the keys to the internet, she was a patent lawyer, and it was actually encouraged by her father, who was a connected man, that's what she should do because it helped her control technology from starting around 1993, as I know it.
And what we've seen is organizations that can make use of data at a scale and at a pace that their competitors can't achieve.
That's because they're using quantum AI, which is much faster than binary.
Maintain a significant competitive advantage.
We say that there are 3 different ways in which we typically deliver impact. It's around people, it's around process, it's around assets.
One of the the key advantages and distinctive things from Quantum Black is that you can bring together many different data sources that measure things that most people would say is not measurable.
They measure things that most people would say are not measurable. Okay.
There's an incredible amount of data that these clients have, most of which is either underutilized or not used at all. And we have the power and ability to help them unlock that.
So when I think about the kind of clients that we like to work with as Quantum Black, there are a few things that make them stand out. One, I think, is a real sense of vision. We're firm believers that data and analytics can transform the performance of organizations, of companies. And we need to work with clients who share our vision around that potential.
They want clients that share their vision of the potential of what? I mean, you look at these guys and you're thinking, who are they talking to? Because they're not even telling you what they're selling.
Brought into situations by some of the largest companies in the world to face some of their most critical challenges, and we're brought in specifically because they remain open problems. They remain unresolved challenges.
I think the things that tend to run across the industries where we do more and more work are, one, the complexity of the challenges they face. Often a lot of engineering complexity or scientific complexity around.
You see, these people are very intelligent when it comes to engineering and science and data.
And advanced industries, technology, software, pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals.
And finding client sponsors who we can work with who enjoy taking this kind of scientific and experimental approach to driving performance.
Finding other like-minded people who want to do this kind of experimental stuff that they're not really telling us that they do.
But Quantum Black can help our clients in a whole range of different ways. But a key way that I look at it is that with a high-performing organisation where there's a list of 100 things that you could potentially do to improve performance, working with Quantum Black helps to identify the top, most impactful things that can be done to change performance.
Okay, so basically you can see on the surface they're selling data technology, data information. And like I said, between them and their other company, the McKinsey company, these people are involved in a lot of different things. And so nanobots may not be one of them, but I truly have a feeling that that's something that they do offer and do sell, just from the bit of research that I have been doing, reading how it works. And you look at their engineering intelligence and capacities too with engines, car engines. Well, what about airplane engines and the type of airplanes that they would need to fly this kind of stuff, and how would they package it, and how would they spray it efficiently, and where, they have data technology to do all of that. This is like go here to this company. It is your one-stop shop for all things data, AI, nanobot, engineering. I mean, it's pharmaceuticals. Oh, and they love to experiment. So you can think for yourself on that and decide what you want. You may not even be interested at all who they are or what they're about, but I found that really interesting, and I believe this is a company that is in fact producing and selling nanobot technology for whatever purposes. So when we look at other videos by Quantum Black, it's pretty easy and quick to see that they are an AI company. They're at AI conventions, and since they're into AI and they're probably using very fast quantum AI, it would explain why their name is Quantum. I'm not sure the black part, but I'll probably look at that a little bit more when I do another video about them and their sister company, which I'll show you in a second, or their collaborating company. And you go and look at these convention videos and you'll see that all these people are so excited about human-sized robot technology, or their concerns of other people that maybe aren't going to these are afraid of things like Skynet type of robots and technology coming to take over. And really what we should be concerned about are the tiny little nanobots that can work as a collective hive mind and do a lot more damage without anyone seeing or knowing than any life-sized, human-sized, or even larger-sized robotic technology could do. So speaking of their the other company that they are associated with, it's called the McKinsey and Company, or McKinsey Company. And here we are right here. When governments turn to AI, algorithms, trade-offs, and trust. So they've got their fingers in a ton of stuff. I'm not even going to read this to you because this would be really another video altogether. But they talk about the algorithms. They talk about doing things to the point where having algorithms set up to the point where you can determine if you should give certain kids a scholarship. You can determine by the kind of student they are, even where they live, where, anything in the past, put all their data together about this kid and decide if this is a worthwhile kid to offer a scholarship to. That's pretty weird. Trying to say it's not biased, I would doubt that that's even true. I'm sure they're trying to create bias and help bias, just like we're seeing with YouTube and their new algorithms, because it's getting smarter, right? And we know the AI can't see memes yet, but they're working really hard on it. And is this the kind of company that's working on that? And these guys have their hands in medicine, the healthcare field, trials and studies of pharmaceuticals, engineering, just tons of stuff. And I'll probably get into that on another video. So until then, I just wanted to show you that there are other videos you can watch with Quantum Black if it has any interest for you, and this is the company that they are collaborating with. So from what I've uncovered, I cannot say that these companies wish ill will or in any way are involved in our demise. More so, what I'm trying to learn is who is involved in the constructions and sales of nanotechnology, what kind of people are they that are cornering the market, and what kind of people are looking to their technology to utilize for their own gains. When you look at the method of subversion, as I talked extensively about in my video, Legislating Equality Will Destroy a Free Nation, then we can see that this sort of method of nanobot use to confuse us, depress us, upset us, and block our memory, along with the subversion tactics, it correctly corresponds with the inner quiet takeover of the global elite and all the previous dictators with war tactics as old as time. The best fight we have here is to be aware, not allow ourselves to be subverted, and bring truth to those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Again, I remind you what Scripture tells us, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Ephesians 6:12. Patriots, there is much to learn here, and learn we will. These two companies, Quantum Black and McKinsey Company, have their fingers in the many industries that I believe Q followers, or not, will find mind-boggling and curious to say the least. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode where we look at McKinsey Company and how they may be implementing their data technology into every aspect of your and my lives with the very algorithms that are being used to censor us. And in circling back to the encryption keys that Hillary Clinton stole, did Mueller attempt to gain control of the keys? Is that why he's poured everything into his Trump probe? Find out next time. God bless, Patriots. Thank you. Like, subscribe, share, comment. I appreciate you. It's all about you. I wouldn't be here without you. God bless. Good night.